The story takes place about 5 days ago. I'm still shaken up over it. I'm a 19-year-old female, and my parents and I packed up our U-Haul and made the long drive to our new home up north from our small and dinky apartment in Central Florida. I can't lie, I was very excited about this move. Attending college in the spring, finally getting to start my dream career, and so many other things I couldn't or didn't get to do in Florida. On the first night of our drive, we stopped at a hotel in what appeared to be a shady area. It was kind of scary as it was set up right outside of a closed down gas station with boards and graffiti written all over them. From my parents' experience and what I've seen on TV, these aren't the types of places you want to go lurking around in. My dad, who's usually very calm and collected, was on edge the whole night since the door to our room didn't close all the way. We had to prop one of the hotel chairs against the door and use the deadbolt to have even the slightest bit of comfort. I thought it couldn't get much worse than that, but I was so wrong. The second night, we stopped in a small town in NC. We had our 2 cats with us, so we had to find a hotel that was pet friendly. We came across one of those hotels and booked a room for the night. While my parents were making sure nothing shifted in the U-Haul, I sat in the passenger seat of my mom's car with my little buddy, trying to calm him down. He seemed more agitated than normal. About half an hour after pulling into the parking lot, we grabbed the cats and our essentials. Emotions were running high, so we were all on edge about getting to our new home in the next day or two, depending on the amount of sleep we got. We loaded our things into a cart and approached the hotel's side door. My mom pulled out the key card and it took a while for the door to finally unlock. But the second we heard a click, a woman started yelling at us. We all looked up and saw her frantically running towards us. Her voice was frantic. The panic in her voice still sends shivers down my spine every time I think about it. She wore a long, dark blue jacket, her hair in a messy ponytail that was tucked inside her hoodie. She either looked really tired, like she hadn't slept in a year, or she had gone through something horrible. She was panting, muttering the words, "Call 911, call 911, there's something wrong with that baby." There was no child with her, nor did we see any kids in sight. My initial thought was that maybe there was a kid near the front of the building that was seriously hurt, or there was a car accident we were too busy unloading to hear the collision. The woman kept telling us to call 911, but my mom told her she didn't have her phone on her. I always carry mine on me, and me being the kind-hearted person I try to be, I offered to call for her. But the moment I pulled out my phone, my dad snatched it out of my hand. The lady then said, "It's really bad. You need to come and see." My mom told her she didn't want to see, and that we should go inside so the lady could go to the front desk and get help. At first she was screaming, "No, no, I don't need their help. I need your help." But my mom kept insisting that we go inside. At this point, my little buddy was whining and clawing at his pet carrier, trying to either get out or attack this lady. My boy might look like a sweet fuzzball, but if provoked, he's a scratching machine. The lady took one look at him and intended to reach for him, saying, Yeah, let's get the babies inside." The way she said that was really creepy. This time she sounded like she was on drugs or had bad intentions. I scooped up my cat before she could touch him, and we led her to the front desk, where she told the hotel worker the same story she told us. The hotel worker tried to calm her down, and while the lady was distracted, my parents and I walked towards the elevator and started getting inside. As I looked back at the lobby, I saw the woman staring at us, her eyes full of anger now. She then started charging at us, and before I even had the chance to react, my mom pushed me and my furry baby into the elevator, them standing in front to protect me. I could see the woman still running towards us as the elevator door was closing. I remembered the small screen near the elevator in the lobby, showing which floor the elevator was heading to, so to stop this crazy lady from harassing us all night. We pushed all the floor buttons and we stopped on every floor. First the second, the third, the fourth, then the fifth. After the fifth floor, we pressed the button back to our original floor and quickly piled into the room. Silence. My heart was pounding the entire time. My body started shaking at what had just happened. As I got my cat out of the carrier, I heard my mom and dad talking about that lady. My dad speculated that maybe she had a mental illness, or maybe she was on drugs, whereas my mom said she could have been a trafficker with the way she was trying to get us to come with her and see the supposed situation. That's when my heart broke. I try so hard to see the good in people, but at the same time, I try to keep the best distance I can. But this was the first time someone ever approached me. I was so gullible to almost believe her story. My guard had slipped. I tried to hold back my guilt and fear as best as I could, but it ended up breaking down. My mom hugged me, saying everything was going to be okay, but no matter how many times she and dad kept saying that, my body continued shaking, and my paranoia lasted throughout the night. Even at the slightest creak, I shot up from the bed and looked out the peephole, thinking the lady had found us. Luckily, she wasn't there. That night, we all decided we were going to get up around sunrise and reach home before nightfall. No more hotel stops, no more creepy people, and no more shady areas. As we checked out the next morning, the same employee from last night was there, and we asked her what had happened after we got into the elevator. The worker told us after that the crazy lady left in a huff, her hands clenched into fists. But then the worker revealed a detail that my mind keeps going back to. When she turned to go after us, she saw a syringe in the crazy lady's jean pocket. I don't know if she had already used it or was planning to use it on me and my family. It makes me wonder what the outcome would have been had my parents not been there, and if I had given the lady my phone instead of offering to call for her. Would she have sold us into trafficking? Would she have robbed us while we were injected with whatever she was on? Anyway, we made it to our new home 2 days ago, but the fear of that night still eats away at me. It goes to show that no matter how panicked and frightened someone may sound or act, you truly don't know if they're in genuine trouble or if they have bad intentions after gaining a stranger's trust. Please be careful out there, guys. I, unfortunately, had to learn the hard way that not everyone in this world is a good person. I'm just happy to still be alive and safe. I hope I never see that crazy lady again. Before I begin this story, I would like to add that I'm a 26-year-old female, but at the time of the events I was 17 years old. Back when I was in high school, which this all took place in 2014, I met a girl there who I'll call Carly. Carly was pretty. She had long red hair and friendly dark brown eyes, sort of like Bella Thorne. She always wore bright, happy, colorful clothing and lots of happy, earthy jewelry. She just looked like such a happy and bright person. She had a loud and outgoing, happy personality too. Carly and I became friends. Everything was great in the beginning. She took me exploring a bunch of abandoned houses in her town. We took a bunch of selfies and pictures together, and she even let me stay at her house for a night. Carly kissed me one day in her car. That led to us making out quite frantically after that. One day, she began taking videos of us making out on her Snapchat account. She told me she was going to send the videos to her ex-boyfriend Michael. I thought that was random, but I didn't say anything. The next day at school, one of my friends, Allison, came up to me and she was very upset. She told me Carly had sent videos of us making out to her boyfriend Carson. She asked me why we would do such a thing. I was very confused and told her Carly told me that she was sending those videos to her ex, who lived in another state. Allison warned me and told me that Carly wasn't my friend. She said she wasn't anyone's friend. I didn't listen and continued hanging out with Carly anyway. I started dating one of Carly's guy friends, who I'll call Garrett. She did not like this. One day, I walked to Garrett's house and called Carly to say hi. While doing so, she told me to be careful, but that she had to go. Garrett and I started walking around his neighborhood talking. The next thing I know, Carly shows up, out of nowhere, with my ex in the backseat of her car, screaming at the top of her lungs that I don't know what I want and that I need to get in her car so she could take me home. Garrett tried telling her to leave, but she went ballistic and kept screaming. So we got in her car, she dropped Garrett off and took me home, and was acting all nice to me once I got in her car. She was telling me how much she loved me and how much I meant to her. I ended up staying the night with her that night. I remember becoming emotional in her room because I didn't like seeing my ex, who I had recently broken up with before Garrett and I started dating. She climbed on top of me and started making out with me. Everything went black. I remember waking up the next morning and she took me home. Later that day, I had been admitted to the hospital because I was feeling unwell for reasons unrelated. So I was in the hospital for a few days. During this particular day, my boyfriend Garrett, my mom, and Carly had come to visit me. We were all visiting when Garrett kissed me. I didn't know this at the time, but my mom later told me that when Garrett kissed me, Carly had a dark and evil look in her eyes as she stared at me. My mom said she gave this look that gave her goosebumps and chills ran up her spine. She said Carly looked completely evil, like she wished I would just die. Shortly after, I was released from the hospital. Then a few days later, when I was back at school, Carly completely shunned me. She wouldn't look at me, she wouldn't talk to me. She completely acted as if I didn't exist. I had no idea what I had done wrong, from the time she visited me in the hospital to now. At school, she gave me a very cold and dark death glare. If looks could have killed, I would have dropped dead. I avoided her after that and had no clue what I had done. She just acted like she hated my guts. Garrett and I eventually broke up, and I got back with my ex, the one that was in Carly's car that day. Now, after I was first released from the hospital, I noticed this sticky stuff all over the screen of the outside of my bedroom window. I had no idea what it was or where it came from. I was waiting for my boyfriend to get off of work one night. I had gone up there to visit him, and he randomly handed me his phone. So I got bored and decided to go through it. I saw that he'd been texting Carly. As I was going through the text, I saw that she had been sending him innuendo photos of herself. And during the time that I was in the hospital and Carly would come visit me and act like my best friend, she was going behind my back and sleeping with my ex. And that sticky stuff on the window, there was a text to my boyfriend from Carly that said, "Let's egg my name's house again. That was fun." I immediately started crying, and my boyfriend, of course, was trying to justify all of this, claiming that he had only hung out with Carly because he missed me and that he was upset that I was still dating Garrett. Carly never spoke to me again, though, and when I tried to confront her as to why she would egg my house and get with my ex while pretending to be my best friend, she tried to pin it all on my boyfriend, claiming that he was after her and that she had rejected him. That summer, Carly told all my close friends that I had committed suicide. She started telling everyone that she had loved me so much and that I had screwed her over. But I'm telling you, that look in Carly's eyes, it was like looking into pure evil. It was horrifying. It was like seeing who she really was. Until this day, it still freaks me out. Years later, I had spoken to a girl who Carly and I had gone to school with, who, let's just call Maddie. Maddie and Carly had become the best of friends after Carly dropped me. Maddie told me, "You're nothing like she described you, and she made you out to be this really horrible person, but you're really nothing like that." Turns out the reason Maddie and Carly stopped being best friends is because Maddie told me that Carly got her to do drugs with her one night at a hotel, and then they did it. She told me Carly then left the hotel and went to find Maddie's crush. It was a guy she had been in love with for a while. Carly did some things with him that night, dumped off Maddie, and began dating this guy. Maddie's words were, "She's not at all who she presents herself to be." And to be honest, she wasn't. Carly wore the happiest and brightest of clothing. On the outside looking in, she appeared like the most loving person ever. And she knew how to make you feel so special, like you were the only one who mattered. But there was a real evil inside of Carly. Something terrifyingly wrong. Something extremely dark and deranged that you could only see once you got close enough to her before she hurt you. I've never seen Carly since, and I really hope I never have to again. So, to the girl who pulled me in and made me believe we were the best of friends, let's not meet. I grew up in a rural part of Maryland, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone within 10 square miles, and it took 30 minutes to get to the nearest department store. Our house was positioned between a cornfield and a forest. The road leading to my house was about 6 miles long, and the only people who ever drove down it were the handful of people that lived back there, and the occasional archaeological van that would do digs in the plot next to our house when the farmers would turn the fields over. We had a few paranormal experiences in that house. I'll briefly mention a few of those before telling you the story behind the title of this post. One day I was in my room upstairs playing piano, and I heard a loud bang on the wall outside my room. My parents said something like, "What the heck was that?" And when I walked out the room to ask them the same thing, my piano started playing the pre-installed demo songs, completely unprompted. It freaked all of us out enough that we called my brother, who was in college at the time, to tell him about it, and years later, he let us know that when we called him that night, he heard a deep laugh in the background of the phone call and was too afraid to tell us about it at the time. Another odd occurrence was when I was sitting in the sunroom and watched my brother walking through the front yard toward the door. I turned and looked into the living room only to see my actual brother sitting on the couch, wearing a different shirt than the doppelganger that walked by the window. My parents would also hear me talking in the house pretty frequently when they knew I wasn't even home. Anyways, in 8th grade I had this witch experience that I really haven't been able to shake, and I had other people with me. My friend's dad was driving me home in his 3-seater truck, with my friend sitting between us. We got to the stretch of road where we could see my house across the field. They planted soybeans that year, so the corn wasn't blocking our view. And in the ditch, right by the road, was a figure I can only describe as a witch. We all saw her. We drove right past her. The ditch lining the road was about 2 feet deep and somewhat overgrown, and we could only see the upper half of her body, as if she were sitting cross-legged in the ditch. She was wearing an off-white nightgown that was stained brown, and her hair was black and tangled. She was looking up into the sky, with her arms extended towards the sky, and she was rocking in a circular motion. I know it sounds ridiculous, but all 3 of us were totally uncomfortable. My friend's dad was rough enough around the edges, carpenter, no BS kind of guy. I remember feeling really scared when he asked us, "What the heck was that?" She didn't look like a homeless person or a drug addict, and we were so far from any town, we literally never had a single person in the 20 years I lived there wander into our area who didn't belong there. She legit looked like she came from another time period and was sitting in our ditch trying to summon a tornado. When we got home, my friend's dad walked us inside, which he didn't normally do because my parents didn't socialize with my friend's parents. He came in almost as if he wanted to kill time to not drive back by her again. He told my parents what we had seen, and we couldn't see her from our house, so we called the police just in case it was someone in need of psychiatric help. My friend and his dad left after a couple minutes, and the police came about 20 minutes later and said they didn't see anyone in the ditch and couldn't find anyone walking in the fields or roads in the surrounding area. My friend's dad called us once they got home and said that by the time they drove by the spot on their way home, she was gone. I truly cannot explain it. My friend's dad has since passed, but my friend says that they still talked about it every now and then, and in the years following. So this happened a long time ago, but I've never forgotten it, as it was one of the strangest encounters me and my family have ever had. One time as a child, I went with my family to the grocery store. It was our monthly trip to stock up on groceries, so we were going to be there for a while. I was about 12 at the time, so by the age I had a good understanding of how to read people. We started in the produce aisle, and suddenly a strange man caught my eye. He was standing awkwardly close to us, sort of fake browsing the vegetables. His body language seemed off. He was standing with his back to us, but something seemed strange about the way he was positioned. As we slowly moved down the aisle, he would slowly rotate so his back was always facing us. As we got a little closer, I could tell he was wearing those see-behind glasses, those gimmick sunglasses that have hidden mirrors on the inside of the lenses so you can see behind yourself. He had a dirty gray zip-up jacket on and long, dark, messy hair. He had to be in his 40s. Our shopping went on, and wherever we went, I would see him standing there, staring at me from across the store. He would keep his distance from us, but he was always within eyesight, no matter where we were in the store. About 30 minutes in, my mom still hadn't noticed it, but he was starting to really creep me out. My mom didn't believe me at first. Eventually, we got to the refrigerator aisles, and this is when it got weird. Whatever aisle we were in, he would quickly pace past us occasionally. At this point, he wasn't even trying to look like he was shopping. My mom and sis were starting to notice this, and also seemed concerned. At one point, we were grabbing something off one of the shelves, and I could see him just standing on the opposite aisle, peeking through the shelves at us. His sunglasses were on still, but now his hood was up. We started to walk faster and do some zigzags randomly around the store to see if he really was following us and to try and lose him, but he would keep up. All in a very sneaky way at that. He would always be at the opposite end of the aisle, but he kept up with us the whole time. By this point, my mom was concerned, so we pushed the cart up to the customer service area to talk to a manager about it, but at this time, we had lost him. We informed the manager, and she was very helpful. She actually went to find the guy and talk to him. We waited at the counter until she paced back to us with a confused look on her face. She walked up to my mother and told us, "He said, you're his mom?" By this point, my mom and sister were concerned. The manager rang us up and said we should leave, and then they will escort the strange man. We walked out to the car, staying close to our mother, when we were met with a horrible sight. The man just standing across the parking lot, across from our car, with his head slightly tilted and a big grin on his face. We floored it out of there, but we could still see him just standing there, watching us leave. Whoever that guy was in those sunglasses, let's not meet again.